iPhone 6s Plus in 2024 after the iPhone 16 series has just released. Yeah, so this phone is older for sure, but it still works in 2024. I believe we got this phone in maybe around 2016. So we've had it for a while now, ever since, the days of the home button, as you can tell, and only one camera on the back of the phone. But yeah, it's a trooper and it's still standing. And so today we're going to review it. All right, here we have it, the iPhone 6s Plus. This was released 9 years ago, over 9 years ago, because this was released September 2015. It is now September 2024. And we're doing a review on it. I just took off the spec case that was on it. This is a rose gold 64 gig phone. And, despite being so old and it has some, dust stuck on it because it was sandwiched in between the case and the phone, but I think if you were to wipe it off, it would still look pretty good. This is an aluminum finish and it looks pretty good even now. You have these white antenna bands that accentuate this pink very well. You've got these two buttons for volume. You've got a ringer button, which is not the case on newer phones. There's an action button on the newer phones where you can customize it. But this is just a literal ringer button switch, at least. Here we've got the screen. This is a 5.5 inch screen, so it's still pretty decent. And this is the plus size. So there was a regular size one, which is a little smaller. But I don't think this feels any, it doesn't feel crazy. This is fine. Nice screen, and yeah, it's a little laggy now in our standards today, but it's not bad at all. It's pretty decent. The height of this phone is 6.23 inches, and it's not that much smaller than the 14 or the 16 Pro Max, which is now 6.42 inches, a little bit taller than this. And for the width, it's 3.07 inches on the newest 16 Pro Max, which is 3.06 inches, nearly the same width. Depth, this is a very thin phone. It's only 0.29 inches thick, and it's pretty light at 192 grams, despite having a larger screen size. And yeah, that's a little bit about the exterior. There is a headphone jack here, which a lot of newer phones don't have. So you can just plug this in and go. You have a lightning cable here, which is outdated now in newer standards because USB-C has taken over. Then you got speakers right here. Notice there's only one camera. Yeah, that's right. There's only one camera and it's 12 megapixels. There's no ultra wide camera. There's no telephoto camera. It's just one camera. But it's not bad, I would say. I used the iPhone 6s Plus for multiple years and the photos turned out great. Although there were some downsides. There's no portrait mode on it. There's no 5x zoom or anything. There is some zoom though. But this particular phone has a problem. As you can see, it's vibrating. Look at that. I think there's something wrong with the optical image stabilization on the camera. You can hear the mechanical sound. I don't know if you can hear it in the video, but it's literally vibrating or something right now. So this camera obviously has a problem. So this phone won't cut it, but that's something to be cognizant of. My phone had this issue too, and I had to get the camera replaced, which cost like $70 at the Apple store. So that's kind of sad. But other than that, when it did work, it took great daytime photos. And yeah, there's that, as well as a home button. That's not a thing anymore. Now the whole screen would just be a screen, or the whole front side. And as such, we have a home button here, which has Touch ID, no Face ID to get into the phone. And there's a white plate on the front. Although it's still glass, it's white, and you can have that. The battery usage, it says on the website up to 14 hours of video playback. This phone is older, so it's definitely not as much, but even on iOS 15, it probably runs quite a few hours. We use this phone, but not all day, every day. So here we go. Yeah, like for example, on Friday, we used it for an hour and 52 minutes. It still gets some usage. I do think it's a little laggy, but not too bad. As you can tell, like if I click calendar, it took a little bit to get here. Now, this supports 4G cellular data, not 5G, so that's something to keep in mind. And there's no MagSafe. A lot of newer phones have this little circle here and a line to indicate MagSafe, which lets you stick this on things that are magnetic, and there's no wireless charging here. So this doesn't have any of that, but that's fine. It starts at 32 gigabytes, goes up to 128. And newer phones these days go up to 1 terabyte, so yeah, that's something to note. This has 3D touch. So what that means is if you hold down on an app, or with pressure, with pressure, you get secondary options like that. They've replaced 3D touch with haptic touch. So on newer phones, you just have to hold a little longer. You don't apply pressure. This one you apply pressure for. In terms of brightness, this goes up to 500 nits. So that would be...
just for random things like...
this is 500 nits. This is 500 nits. But newer phones go way higher with peak brightness at 2000 nits. So like 4 times the brightness of this it can go, but this doesn't go that high. And so that's something to note. But for me, honestly, this is enough brightness. Obviously, if you're outside in the daytime, then that would be perhaps a little dim, but I mean, we use these phones for years, so like it's fine. Another thing to note is this is a pretty light phone. It's 6.77 ounces, not too bad. And you know, it's a pretty good size. It fits in my hand. And splash water and dust resistancy, this doesn't have that. So don't drop this into a pond and you should be fine. And other than that, this uses an A9 chip, still a little bit outdated considering new ones use A18 Pro chip. Oh, that's a little bit about that. With video now, I wanted to point out this still has 4K video recording at 25 or 30 frames per second, which is pretty cool. I think you have to go into settings to turn it on, but pretty impressive. There's no Dolby Vision video recording though, which newer phones can have, but I mean, I don't really see the use of that for most people. It has a FaceTime HD camera, and this front camera is only 5 megapixels, whereas newer ones like 16 Pro Max uses the 12 megapixel camera, but not terrible. And you also have the point of, you can still use Apple Pay, you can still use normal things like that. You can use the fingerprint sensor to get into the phone, or you know, use passwords and whatnot. So that's cool. But besides that, I'd say this phone is decent going even in 2024. If I were to call something out, it's that heavy duty tasks, if you're a heavy duty user, if you're going to be like using iMovie and stuff on here, that might be a little harder to do. But if you haven't used a newer phone than this consistently, you probably won't notice that difference. So if you're using this on a day-to-day basis just for the most normal tasks, like using the phone, you listening to music, taking notes, watching YouTube, this phone cuts it. Like, you could, even now, we use an iPhone 14 Pro Max on the daily, but this phone still gets its usage at home just for random things like, you know, scrolling on Facebook or whatnot. So yeah, even 9 years later, this phone is not bad. If you can get a really good price and you only want to use it for the basics, I'd say this is sufficient. But if you're like me and you like taking a lot of photos, taking videos, you know, you want that snappiness of the screen, you want that 120 hertz screen, this doesn't have that. I would recommend a way newer phone, and one with a screen. And something to note here is that this doesn't update to the newest iOS. The newest this is on the iOS 15, and the newest iOS 16 will not be supported on this phone. So that's something to keep in mind. This is not a future-proof phone. This is pretty much running out of iOS updates. So I would recommend getting a newer phone if you want to have the top software updates going forward on your phone. I'd recommend something with a full-size iPhone screen, because those are just newer. They have Face ID. They don't have this button anymore. But I know a lot of people still like the button over the Face ID and a full screen. But I do prefer this full screen myself. Now, I hope you really enjoyed this video. Let me just review the little case on it, I guess, at this point. Just because we're on this topic. This is the Spec grip case, and I do recommend spec cases. I think they're pretty chill. Yeah, I mean, it has some cracks here, but it protected the phone pretty well considering this is a 9-year-old phone. So yeah, hope this video was helpful. And if you have any questions at all, please feel free to leave them in the comments below. And I will see you on the next video. Thanks. Bye.